The first update for the Nodcry characters in the beta has come out, and all of them are getting stronger with the new changes, both to their individual kits and broader changes across the board. In addition, all of the drip marketing has been released and really throws a question into the release timing for these characters. So in this video, we're going to get you fully updated on the Nodcry beta so that you can be the most informed possible going into Nodcry. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Sometimes when I'm playing, I know that I made a dodge, switch, or input in time, but the game just didn't register it properly. And often, depending on this issue, it is because of my high ping. But fortunately, Gear Up Booster is here and it works. It is free to download and try for yourself. It works with mobile, PC, and console. All you have to do is select your game and press boost. It will reduce your ping. You can see right now I have 91, and then after activating Gear Up Booster, we are all the way down to 65. I even did a switching comparison before and after, and as you can see, I'm just spamming switch back and forth on both of the non-boosted and the boosted side. And as you can see, the boosted side wins by a long shot. It is a very noticeable improvement. Reducing your ping could even be a DPS increase for your account if you're using an artifact set like the Echoes of the Offering. Using certain DPSs like Chlorand, Gear Up Booster could increase your damage and just make the game more enjoyable to play. It is especially effective if you're playing the game from a different physical location to the server that your game is on. Gear Up Booster is extremely secure, trusted by well-known creators and professional esports teams for games like Overwatch, Fortnite, or League of Legends, and of course enjoyed by millions of Genshin Impact players around the world. Please check out the link below. Again, absolutely free to try out, and let me know how much your ping was reduced by down in the comments. Thanks to Gear Up Booster for sponsoring the channel once again. As per usual, I really want to make the disclaimer that anything could change in the future because we are still in the early days of beta, and even going into the late days of beta, things can still change. That being said, I think it's still very valuable to know all of this information so that you can plan your pulls accordingly, as well as to give feedback to Genshin should they happen to be watching this, as they have already made some pretty good changes based on the pushback that the overall community has given. So we're going to start with the drip marketing, and I'm going to read through it and talk about the designs as I always like to do, but if you're just interested in the beta buffs, I will make sure to have a timestamp that you can click so that you can just get what you came for right away. First of all, Lauma. Personally, one of my favorite designs out of all the Nodcry characters, not just for the two reasons you're thinking of. I really love her color scheme. I love the antlers. If you've seen her animations, the actual animations are alright to me, but the way that her antlers glow and they grow bigger when you have two Nodcry units on the team is really, really cool. And overall, I just think it's such a clean design. I really like her character, and I really like what she's bringing to the game, so I'm really, really excited for her. One of my most anticipated Nodcry characters, plus, yeah, just how she's going to buff all the Bloom teams is really, really good. Lauma, Evermoon's Sacrament Song, Maiden of the Grove. Though they are the indigenous residents of the land, the Frostmoon Scions do not seem to fit in with the Nodcry of today. They are too ancient, too stuck in their ways, too rooted in the worship of a god that they have never seen. They believe that the wintry woods are their shield and their sanctuary, and that the light of the full moon can dispel all that ails. They pray to the moon, on their lips an eternal refrain, "O goddess of the frost moon, when will you answer our wishes?" And when they receive only silence, they turn and ask again, "O lady moon chanter, when will the goddess of the frost moon answer our wishes?" Thus did Lauma step out from beneath the shade of the trees onto the light of the moon. Thus did the congregation bow before her radiant antler crown and silver-blooded totem. Thus was she anointed the agent for an absent god. Really cool lore. Really, really cool. I can't wait to see what they do with it. I think there's some really, really awesome potential for great stories in Nodcry. Under our Moonchanter's most benevolent watch, no innocents or animals shall come to harm. Or, so I would like to say, but should the law of the jungle falls away, some sharp-fanged beasts will surely starve the taste of flesh. Nefer. Ooh, Nefertiti. Name Lauma. Title Evermoon's Sacrament Song. Maiden of the Grove. Moonwheel. Dendro. Constellations. Carve. Nivea. It's just Nivea cream. I'm sure there's something cool. Yeah, I think she looks great. Okay, they also drip marketed Aino. So here's what I was saying about the changes to the banner order. We originally thought that Flins was going to be first because Prediction Man had predicted these specific characters coming, and they predicted Aino's element, which she doesn't look Hydro to me, so that screams to me insider information to predict Aino to be Hydro. I never would have predicted that just by looking at her. And they did originally predict Flins to be first half and Lauma to be second half. This could really throw some people off. I think Flins is a bit more reliant on Aino, so if Aino's not on his banner, that would be a shame. Lauma would like Aino for a bunch of her teams, which we'll go over their updated teams later on, but she's not as reliant, so I kind of would have liked to see Aino on Flins's banner. Maybe they're both at the same time in the first half. That seems like it'd be too much, though. I don't think Genshin's ever dropped two characters at the same time. It's just like both of them you'd like to see Aino on the banner. That being said, maybe Flins Wanters will be happy because it's more time to save for Flins after getting Inefa, because it's looking like in the buffs you'll see Flins isn't quite as reliant on Inefa as he was, but it's still fairly reliant. So maybe this will give him, if he is indeed second half, maybe that will give more time. But for Inefa, I don't know if I want to read all of this. A chaotic place lashed by howling frigid winds for many years, this is their first impression of Nod Cry, but once you familiarize yourself with its rules and patiently explore the land, you'll come to know that it is full of marvelous, wonderful things as well. As you shop, you may meet a robot girl making purchases like anyone else, while the clanking of curiously shaped foundries echoes through the markets. If you're lucky, you may also catch a glimpse of robots speeding by, lots of robots. Ask around, you'll learn that these are all Aino's creations. If this piques your curiosity and you wish to meet this genius inventor, it's no tall order. Just walk out of Nasha town and head to the outskirts, where a giant metal building awaits. Before even stepping inside, you'll be greeted by a unique aroma, a blend of machine oil, metal, and crumb cakes, the smell of home for Aino, who stays here with Inefa, her all-purpose household robot. Aino lives life by a simple creed: invent interesting mechanical wonders for fun, and when not tinkering away, enjoy the best snack in the world, Inefa's freshly baked crumb cakes. However, not all are lucky enough to meet this genius mechanic. Any who do not appreciate her creations will see the craft shop's door slam shut in their face, so before flooding her with endless new requests, maybe shower Aino's designs with some well-deserved praise first. Otherwise, well, wouldn't it be a shame if disgusting crumb cakes started popping out of your next mechanical device for whatever reason? A vengeful, genius little girl inventor. You wish to know how to make friends with Aino, analyzing data, generating answer. First, say no to savory crumb cakes. Second, admire Aino's inventions. Third, play with Aino often. Clinky Clank Gadgets A Go-Go, parent of the Clinky Clank Crumb Cake Craft Shop. Wow, this is hard to say. Vision Hydro Constellation Kistelula Mira. Kistelula Mira. Is it a crumb cake? I don't know. I don't know anything about this. She's cute. I liked her at first. I don't like her as much after seeing her designs. I don't love her animations. I don't love her design. It's kind of whatever to me, but she is the first Hydro Claymore in the game. We now have every weapon type for every element, so that's pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure she's going to be like a must. Like I said in my other video, I think she's going to be basically a must build by default, and you will basically throw her in the garbage as soon as Columbina comes out, which everyone will pretty much pull. So, you know, your must build Cope 4-star will turn into, will be replaced by your must pull Archon. So, whatever, it's fine. At least she will enable all of the Nodcry teams and be a free 4-star that does it. Alright, for Flins, Kribril Chudomirovich Flins. Kribril Chudomirovich Flins. Shadowy Lights, Stranger Waits, Ratnik of Nodcry. What's a Ratnik? They love finding random words. A programmer? Oh, a Russian future infantry combat system. Ah. I mean, his name did sound Russian. During harvest season, no visitor would be considered too strange a guest at the festivities. As the setting sun cast its light over the marketplace, such a scene soon unfolded. A certain gentleman arrived as well, and curious locals soon drew him into their lively conversations. The gentleman introduced himself, Flins, a warrior of the Lightkeepers. He had been awarded a civilian commendation medal in recognition of his squad's effort in repelling abyssal creatures. The incident happened a long time ago. Though no one had stopped forward to organize it, the people wordlessly agreed to express their gratitude in this way. The medal had been heavy delivered to him in a time-worn box. Considering how many casualties the operation had racked up, Flins did not think even 10 medals could do justice to the losses. There used to be more of them, 7 or 8 in his squad, but now only Flins remained, guarding the cemetery near the lighthouse. Damn. For a moment, the crowd fell silent. The story brought to mind many things, the wild hunt, the monsters, as well as other memories that weighed heavily on the heart. Sorrow rendered them speechless. Some others had questions, and so they asked them, but Flins did not answer. He kept his head down, seemingly reminiscing. Compared to the other lightkeepers, Flins spoke with an air of elegance. He did not deign to answer questions about his origins, or whether he had any siblings. Instead, he was much more inclined to talk about distant, unrelated matters. He had a way of recounting events with perfect measuredness, just as in conversation, never excessive. The past, through his words, made listeners think to themselves, what an unforgettable tale. Considering the vast majority of his audience lacked much life experience, many who listened to Flins did so out of curiosity, and it just so happened that his actions fit precisely this need. He invariably selected tales perfectly tailored for public retelling. Overall for Flins, I really like him. I really like his design. Obviously, everyone is a fan of this design pretty much, and I definitely am. He looks amazing. His animations look absolutely incredible. I think they knocked it out of the park just overall with his designs. Finally, people who are into male characters finally have someone cool to look forward to. My only one piece of criticism, and it is a really big one, his kit is basically the same as Veresa, which, you know, you could call lazy and whatever. By the same as Veresa, I mean, after using his skill, he gets a special enhanced skill, enhanced normal attacks, and a special mini burst that you use multiple times throughout the rotation, basically exactly the same as Veresa. As a result, he does not ever use his big burst if you are actually playing him for optimal damage, which is an absolute shame. Veresa's burst animation doesn't look that amazing to me, but Flins' burst animation is honestly one of the best in the entire game, and the fact that you never use it ever, if you're playing him optimally, is just a real crying shame. It feels just like, why give him such a cool burst? It's way worse than people who complain. Well, like sometimes people complain about, oh, why'd they give cool normal attacks to characters that never use them? Well, giving them a crazy burst animation is way worse than giving just unique normal attacks that you'll never use, in my opinion. I know some people are going to force it and make it work, and I get the dedication to the cause. I totally support you, but you know, why does Hoyoverse have to make it such a bad option? And at least they could make it like comparable so that it's only a small DPS loss to do that, or make it like Skirk so that sometimes you can use both. It just feels bad for them to do this, and I just don't like it. So I wish they would change it, but unfortunately with the new update they doubled down on this and they raised his burst cost even higher and reduced the multipliers of the big burst. So while also that does buff his normal burst because he can hold more energy for his normal burst, it does nerf him overall. No, it doesn't nerf him overall, it buffs him overall, but it makes the big burst worse. 80 cost is really high. So overall, yeah, very disappointed with that, but overall his kit still looks cool. So, and he did get a power buff, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Sir Flins lives in a lighthouse far away from here. He's decisive in action and seems quite tactically adept, or so I hear. Sorry, I can't say for certain. I'm a new joiner and I've never worked with him directly. Everything I've heard comes from Star Sheena. You want to know what I think about him? I suppose he's a man with many stories. Don't you find it strange how a warrior like that carries himself with such a refined air? And then there's his expertise in using his eloquence to get what he wants. It does seem a bit suspicious. Iluga, kind of like Beluga. Name, well, I already read that. That's hard to read. Shadowy Lights, Stranger Whites, Ratnik of Nod Crime, Moonwheel Electro, Constellation Lanterna, Vigilis. Well, I know what that means, so that's good. Okay, so let's go over all the buffs, nerfs, etc. So the main buff that was just applied at a baseline to every single character that uses Nodcry characters on their team is that now non-Nodcry characters give buffs as well. Note, this does require 2 actual Nodcry characters to be on the team to deliver these buffs, but non-Nodcry characters do deliver buffs, which is really cool. So when the moon phase is 2 and a non-Nodcry character uses skill or burst, all teammates will receive up to 48% lunar damage bonus based on their element. So in the ideal situation, you have 2 Nod Cry units and then 2 non-Nod Cry units, and you basically add up the relevant stats for whatever elemental type those non-Nod Cry units are. They give that buff. So for example, if you've got Skirk and Farina, which won't work right now because there's no way to build a Skirk team, but let me cope for the future for Skirk Nod Cry teams. You would add up 1.2% for every 100 attack from Skirk. So she would give 1.2%. My Skirk has like 2250 attack. So 2250 times 0.012. So she's going to give 27% lunar damage bonus from this. And then you'll also add whatever Farina's giving. So 0.8 for every 1000 HP. My Farina has 40,000 HP. So 40 times 0.8. So my Farina will give 32% lunar damage bonus. You add them up together. That's much higher than the 48%. So they will give, those two together will give them max 48% lunar damage bonus. And so non-Nod Cry characters are contributing to the team. So there you go. It's not a direct buff to any of the Nod Cry characters, but 48% lunar damage bonus is nothing to sneeze at, and it's really nice that non-Nod Cry characters can give some kind of buff. This combined with Flins's actual direct buff is that they did make his big ult worse, but you weren't using it anyways. It was already a DPS loss. So that allows him to hold more energy for his small burst. It makes his weapon more valuable. It makes his C1 more valuable because the energy regeneration can be held. You can hold more energy, and it'll just make his rotation smoother overall. And his overall, the result of this is that Flins has still around Veresa levels of damage. This is based on the Genshin Scientist calcs, and I did some of my own mathing where I used someone else's calcs, and they calc the difference between with an EFA and without an EFA, and I used TGS's baseline, and I confirmed it again with another calc. So overall, you're looking at about 89k without an EFA and 108, 109 with an EFA. It's still a very, very big difference. Flins definitely really wants an EFA, but it's not as egregious. He doesn't need an EFA or he's going to feel terrible. He's going to need an EFA to feel great, but he'll still be okay at least without an EFA. 89k is right around where Skirk is without a Scoffier. Obviously with an EFA, he's not as high as Skirk with a Scoffier, but like the baseline is there and it's not terrible. So Lauma also did get a direct buff. She does more bloom and lunar bloom damage. You don't do that much lunar bloom damage on her team, so even though it was a larger buff, it's not as huge for overall, but overall she did get a small buff. And then Ino got an 80 EM share at C1. Nice to have a buffing constellation that's so early on, and that's also what made Flins's teams a bit better without an EFA, is that at least Ino is contributing more to the team. We have some calcs from Vomfy. If you want to check out Vomfy, his Twitch will be linked in the description. He calced Flins at 101k DPS, so a bit lower than some of the other calcs, but still very good. He calced Alhaitham, Kuki, Lauma, Ino, so Alhaitham teams to be around 90k, Yelan Singcho teams to be at 91. This is a bit lower than what Zajef originally said. He figures that they'll be over 100k. I hope it's around 100k. That would make me happier. But this is Hyperbloom. Bloom is notoriously very difficult to calc. So we got to give a bit more time for everyone to share their assumptions and settle on sort of the best consensus. The Genshin Scientist revamped his calcs and got 96k Nilou teams. Zajef got over 100k DPS, and then Vomfy in the best Lauma team got over 110k DPS for Nilou teams, which would make Lauma, Baiju, Ino, and Nilou teams, that would make them higher than Veresa levels of damage. That would make this third highest single target damage in the game if this ends up being accurate, which is absolutely spectacularly high. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt, wait for more information, wait for more calcs, wait for testing. It's still early on in the beta, but basically Nilou teams are looking crazy. It's still weird to me that Hyperbloom teams are not as good as Nilou teams. I feel like by the end of the beta, they will be closer in single target. I feel like Hyperbloom should even be a bit better in single target. It's just not how it's working, because the way that Laoma's buffing blooms, there's more blooms created in the Nilou teams, and Laoma bluffs the booms a lot. So personally, let's just say that these are the numbers that actually end up happening, I would say that I would like to see a bit more of a buff for the Hyperbloom stuff. I think the Nilou stuff is good, and I think Flins' stuff is good, considering overall that all Nodcry characters are going to get a very massive buff with Columbina's release. Columbina is going to be huge for Nodcry teams, probably all teams. I expect her to be the best character in the game at release, just because that's kind of how Genshin likes to do things. So I understand them needing to leave room and not make all the characters too broken before releasing the Archon-like character. So I think this makes sense to me. All right, taking a look at some teams, it's looking like Flins, Inefa, plus Hydro. Now this could be Ino, or it could be Yelan. They both should be fairly similar. After I had completely finished recording the video, I just got word that Zajef made a ton more calcs for Flins. So I wanted to talk about them here, and my team section in the second will be a little bit outdated, but consider this an addition to the team section. Zajef calced everything, and this is going to answer a lot of your questions. You know, Flins C1 or Flins R1. We can see right here, he did C1 versus signature. And the C1 is quite a bit noticeably ahead of his signature. So if you're not sure if you want to go for his weapon or his C1 is definitely the way to go. You might also be considering, should I get Inefa or should I just invest more in Flins? And we have a calculation here that kind of suggests that you would rather go for C1 Flins rather than going for Inefa, because right here we can see with C6 Kujo Sara, C1 Flins, we're getting 133k DPS, whereas the baseline premium with Inefa is 118,000. So that's quite a big jump of about 15,000 DPS. So this would immediately, make you think, oh, his C1 is going to be a lot better. Well, just remember that this team doesn't have a healer, so you kind of really want to swap out Sucrose for Lanyan, and if your Lanyan isn't C4, she's not going to be sharing any EM, and if she's C4, she's going to be sharing 60. 60 is pretty good, but it's a lot less than the 180 or 200 that Sucrose can share. So you can expect this number to dip down a decent bit. And on top of that, if you don't have Sara C6, you can expect that to be dip down even more. And Sara C6 wouldn't be worth running without C6. So Auroron C6 you might consider. But if you don't have Auroron C6, you're missing out on the attack buff, which is also really big. So you're going to lose a bunch of damage from Auroron C6 and then also lose a bunch of damage from Sucrose going to Lanyan. So overall, unless you have Sara C6 or Auroron C6, you're going to be about on par if you swap out Inefa for one of the other Electro characters, assuming you're not playing healerless, because healerless Flins just sounds terrible to play. So assuming you're swapping to Lanyan, and if you don't have C6 Auroron or C6 Sara, you'll be better off just getting Inefa, or at least they'll be about the same. But good to know if you don't want to go for Inefa, just investing in Flins himself, whether it's his C1 or his weapon, is going to be at least as worth it, if not more, depending on the constellations of the 4 stars that you'll be replacing him with. We can see also that Candace is actually very competitive and is actually going to be better than Ino at Constellation 0, which is amazing. You gotta love to see Candace getting some extra love. We can see that Laoma doesn't have the best synergy with Flins. You're sort of better off just going for Sucrose, but the fact that it's so close, if you just don't want to use Sucrose or whatever, and you want to use Laoma together with Flins, it's cool to have that option. We can also see that Yelan is just going to be better than Ino at C0, but is going to be worse than Ino at C6, but still relatively close. And overall, just looking at the calcs in general, they're looking quite a bit higher than what the calcs that I had before. He is looking currently to be the 3rd best DPS in the game. I would expect him to, with these numbers, I'd expect him to be better than Veresa as long as you have his premium team, and probably reach Skirk levels of DPS with the release of Columbina, which is kind of where I expected the Nodcry meta to be. So this is all very interesting. Once again, thanks very much to Zajef for these calcs, and check out him. He's always linked in the comments because I think his calcs are very valuable, but keep in mind, until these are, corroborated by other calcers and we can test it in game, it's not the gospel, it's not everything. You always want to compare and take it with a grain of salt, because everyone uses different assumptions, and the later we go into the beta, the more things will settle. And then Sucrose is going to be the best team. And then you can also replace Inefa for Fischl or C6 Orororon. And then you will put in Lanyan as your defensive utility. It will be a bit of a loss compared to Sucrose damage-wise because she doesn't share as much EM, but she still passes Thrilling Tales, it's still VV, it's still 60 EM, and you get a very, very strong shield. So this is like the free-to-play Flins team, and being 90k for a totally 4-star free-to-play team is quite good. And then, again, you can do Fischl. I think it's Fischl or Orororon will either be whichever one you have more constellations for. Xilonen should be worse until Xilonen C2 than Lanyan. And then Kazuha is also worse because Kazuha, the damage bonus doesn't improve lunar reaction damage, which is most of Flins' damage. And Kazuha can't pass Thrilling Tales, and he doesn't share EM until his C2. So Kazuha is just going to be strictly worse than Sucrose and Lanyan. And from what I'm gathering, the Hyperbloom stuff with Flins is going to be worse than his Electrocharge stuff, but that's yet to be fully confirmed. Bennett also might work somewhere here, so we'll definitely be testing that. For Lauma, this will be her strongest team, either Yaoya or Baiju. Both should work very well. Baiju should be a little bit better, but this should work very well too. And this is looking like Lauma's best team right now. You can go for a Nahida Kokomi version of the Nilou team, but it's looking a bit worse and probably a bit harder to play than the Dendro Healer version. And then Lauma Double Hydro is looking quite strong as well. You can put Raiden in for the Hyper Bloom trigger. This would be technically a healerless team. I'm guessing Inefa will probably be the strongest. You'll be on-fielding Llama in either of these versions. And then, of course, you can use Kuki. Kuki doesn't buff the bursts of Yelan and Xingqiu and doesn't proc quite as many Hyper Blooms as Raiden, but will provide the healing, so might be the superior choice for most people. And then, of course, using on-field Alhaitham should be quite good as well. It's looking a bit worse than the Double Hydro versions right now, either on par or worse. I think the question is, will there be enough Hydro to actually get Thunderclouds for Inefa? If not, you'll definitely have to go for Kuki instead. And this will definitely be a big bump to Alhaitham's teams. From what I'm seeing, though, the Hyper Bloom stuff is hitting about 90k. I would really like it to see it hit, 5 or 10k more. I want to see it be kind of Ayaka levels with a Escoffier. So that would be, for Ayaka, that would be like 5k more. That's kind of it. It's not too big of a difference. So it's only a bit weaker for the Hyper Bloom stuff than I would want to see it to like as a really recommendable pull. And then the Nilou stuff, for whatever reason, is just calcing so freaking high. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that this is calcing up anywhere north of 100k is absolutely bonkers to me, and north of 110 is absolutely crazy. I do expect Nefer to be the on-field Bloom DPS, and she will make the best. She'll probably be best in Hyper Bloom. And then what I'm guessing is that if you want to play optimal Nilou stuff with Nefer, you will need Lauma's C1, because there's just not a good Hydro applicator from off-field that also heals. Like Kokomi can heal and apply Hydro, but she needs to be on-field to do it enough. So if you're going to use Nefer in a Nilou team, I'm guessing they're going to make you pull Lauma C1, whereas Lauma C1, if you didn't know, is a team-wide heal. But otherwise, Llama C1 is sort of bait, because you don't need Llama C1 for Nilou teams before Nefer, because you don't need to on-field a DPS in particular. And it's kind of not necessary for the Hyper Bloom teams either. So that's kind of where I'm at overall. If you missed the first part of the banner video, we now expect Lauma to come in the first half and Flins to come in the second, which would mean, I'm guessing, Nahida in the first half and Yelan in the second. We're hearing now that Nefer should be in 6.1, so maybe I'll move everything up here, and then Durin is going to be 6.2. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what the most recent predictions say. It doesn't change things a crazy amount regardless, but good to keep updated, I think. And then we also have further confirmation that the Sumeru Chronicled Wish is going to be in 6.0. I predicted this and I stood by it for a long time, even with a lot of people saying that's too much going on for an anniversary for 6.0 banners. I think it just makes too much sense to not have the Sumeru Chronicled Wish in 6.0, and I think that I think that is okay. It is a lot. 2 new characters and a Sumeru Chronicled Wish. That's a lot, but most meta players should be skipping the Sumeru Chronicled Wish. So far, I still don't think I recommend Nilou as a meta pull, but if you like her / already have her, she will be very, very excellent. I just expect that the Nefer stuff to be very expensive to use with Nilou, and I expect that to be better than the Nilou stuff overall. So that is where we're at. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I'll keep you updated on all the changes that I think are important. Any of the less important stuff I'll have on my Twitter, which is also linked down below, so you can go check that out if you're interested. And if you don't want to do any of that, that is totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Thanks so much. Bye for now.